Hello, Karen Vanny here, talking resumes again. This is part 2 of the resume training. We're calling it The Details, and it's really the nitty-gritty, getting down into the details on each and every section. So this is another of the Train the Trainers for the Job Seeker Essential trainings. And what we did was we split up the resume trainings into 3. When I do this live and in person, very often I'll do the resume building on one day, and then the next day I'll do the details, and I'll talk about these details in a computer lab where they can actually work on their resumes, and then that just goes right into the resume writing one, which is the third one. So you don't have to do these in 3 days. You can do these, all in one day if you wanted to, but we broke them up into 3 sessions. You'll find all 3 of these on Job Seeker Central. So what you'll see is I am a training coordinator with Workforce Services Division, and I will wear my training hat and talk to you as the trainer, and then I'll kind of take that off and give you the presentation as you would with a job seeker. Each one of these presentations, you have the PowerPoint slides. You can take those off the shelf. You can use them. You can, put your own logo on there and put your own contact information in the last slide there and all that. And the notes are in the bottom section of each one of those PowerPoint slides. And we also have a slides notes handout that you can go and kind of look over, and you can get an idea of, what's intended to be said on those slides. That doesn't mean you should memorize those. It doesn't mean that you should read them. It just gives you an idea of what is intended and what's meant by that slide. It's frustrating to me when I see a slide with some good information, but it just doesn't give me enough to really know what was intended to be said. So that's the whole idea, so that you're prepared. So this training is going to cover those details. We're going to talk a little bit about Word templates, design themes, formatting information, and best practices when you save, and then, kind of how to go over each one of those and really get into the nitty-gritty in detail. So we're going to talk about what to add, what not to add, and then that next presentation we'll open up a Word document and really get to work starting it from a blank slate. Our outcome slide, what are we going to learn? We're going to talk about specific formatting, so we really get into the margins and all that jazz, what to include in each section of a resume, and then some technical tips when somebody's using Microsoft Word. Okay, people don't like to hear this. Very often I say don't use a template, and you hear gasp, they go, what? This is what I've been doing. And you know what? That's how I got my job at Job Service. I used a template, but times have changed. That is not what we're doing anymore. It is not ATS friendly. By the way, it's not unique. Everybody has access to Microsoft Word. Everybody has access to the templates. It doesn't make you look like you stand out from the crowd. It looks like you are one of the crowd. So we do not want to use a template. We want to create it from the blank document, and I will show you how to use theme options and design options and color hues to make it stand out and make yours look different than anybody else's because of the way that you've chosen to choose that. The themes and the designs and whatnot that come with those templates, they're very outdated, believe it or not. They might look like they're up and coming and new and they're so popular, but they're really not. And everybody is using it. Everybody has it. So I'll show you how to show clients how to do this the right way. Okay, we'll start with formatting. Formatting 101, and we're going to dive into each one of these. We will talk about margins and font and alignment, talk about bullets and tables and all of these wonderful things. Spelling and grammar, preferred formats, we will cover them all. So let's dive on in. We're going to start with formatting, and we're going to cover each one of these again when we're in Word. So this will be like a refresher when we get into Word, because we'll go, remember, we talked about this. This is how we get to it now. So as far as formatting is concerned, a great place to start your document with your blank document is how big you want those edges. Now, what I suggest that we do is we start by skinnying up that top margin so that our name is at the very top of the document, but it's not in the header. It's just at the very top. So we're going to change the top margin to 1/2 inch. The others, I like to leave at 1 inch while I'm typing it up. And then once I get done, if I'm trying to squeeze more on the page, you can move that around a little bit. You can adjust it to 0.75 on left and right. You always want left and right to be the same. So make sure if you change left, you change right as well. You can go down, as far as ATS is concerned, you can go down all the way to 0.63, but you really don't want to do that. You can, but it's going to look a little hinky. 0.75 is really the lowest that I usually like to go. Sometimes you just want one more sentence to fit there or something, or one more word, and it makes sense, but not very often. And the other thing to remember is that the information that is in headers and footers is going to get lost by ATS. So like some people like to put a page number on there if you have a 3-page resume or a 2-page resume. You can do that, and if you're printing it to hand it to somebody, that'll be fine. If you are putting that as a PDF and you're going to email that over, that will be fine. But if it's going through ATS, it's going to lose that. Now, ATS doesn't care about the page number anyway, so who cares? But if you were to put your contact information in the header portion, so above that margin line, it would lose that, and ATS might not see your name at all. That's why we don't want to use the headers and footer section. Okay, moving on to formatting. So we're going to kind of talk about this section by section. We'll talk about the name at the top, your contact information, your different section headers, and what I mean there is like work experience, education, certification, skills and abilities, that kind of a thing, and what to do with each one of these. So as far as font is concerned, we want to make sure that we choose something that's attractive, but it should also be conservative. And so what I mean by conservative is boring. You don't want to use a real fancy font or something like Comic Sans that looks like handwriting. You want it to be really easy to read, which usually means a sans font. You'll see that in there. You don't want it to be too big, and you don't want it to be too small. If you don't have a lot of data on the page and you fill the font as 14 or 16, that's going to look pretty ridiculous. So that's not what we want either. Your headings, if you choose your headings from the style section in the home tab, which I'll show you all of that jazz when we get there, that seems to work really well for your section headers. Although you could also choose to use, and this is where in your boxes you're seeing here, you could also choose to use their bold, capitals, or italics. So, that just make sure that you're consistent. If you use in the work experience section, you use bold and you go up one level. So instead of 10 font, it's 12. Make sure you do that for the education section and that you do that for the skills section too, so that those headers always pop in the same way and look the same way. The other thing that you can try to do, and it's unique and it really makes it pop off the page, you don't have to change the font size at all, but for those headers, you can use an expanded font, and I'll show you how to do that in the Word portion as well. And all it does is put a little extra space between each one of those letters in it, and it just makes it pop off the page. It's neat, and so I'll show you how to do that too. Remember, as far as your contact information, your name needs to be, or the client's name needs to be the biggest font on the page. So regardless of how big all those other headers end up being, you want to use the biggest font there, and you can always change the font size in your home tab. I suggest starting with a title or a heading 1 style from the style section. However, you could just increase the font if you wanted to do it that way as well. That's completely up to you how you do that. Generally speaking, your font for your name is going to be 24 to 36 points. So it really is going to depend on your name. Some people have really long names, and there's no way you could use a 36 point font. So you're just going to keep making it as big as you can to where it stays on the page and it looks good. The contact line. Now this is going to be the line right under your name. So this is where you're going to have the city, state, your email address, your phone number, the way you want them to contact you, and your LinkedIn profile. That information should be fairly large, but it should all fit on one line. So that, you could try using a header or style if you want, but you could just use basic font. You can use the expanded font. You could just make it bigger to, get it big. And you can even, bold it or something if you wanted. I like to use a basic symbol between each one of those. So I put my city, state, and then I like the vertical bar or the circle, just like you're inserting a bullet basically, but you're doing it from the symbols menu. And I'll show you how to do all those things too. That really works great. It looks good on the page. It's a good way to break things up. So I'll show you how to do that too. Section headers should be the next biggest font. So what I like to do is just go down one in the style section. So if I picked heading 1 for my name, I'm going to pick heading 2 here. Or if I pick title, I'm going to pick heading 1 here. So I'll just go down one style and see how that looks. You can always, adjust the size of the font as you go. Okay, so alternatively, you could also use caps, bold, underlined, italicized. Just be careful not to use more than 2 at the same time. So you wouldn't want to bold, italicize, and underline all 3 on the same line of text. That's not professional. The font in your headers can be 2 points bigger than the body. So if your body of your resume you're using is 10, you could go up to 12 for your heading. If you're using 12 for the body, you could go up to 14 for the heading. You don't have to go that high. You could just go 1 over it, but you don't want to go any more than 2 bigger than the body of the rest of your text on your resume. The body of the resume, so everything else in between your bullets and all that jazz, should be consistent and it should be legible. Experts suggest 10 to 12 points. So you don't want it to go too small. 8 is way too small, and you don't want to go too big. You can also use the normal option in the styles section. That's usually going to be between that. It's usually 10 or 11, so you're going to be right there in that sweet spot. I think I covered all that. Okay, formatting. So text alignment really matters too. All of this section, we're talking about the way it's actually going to look visually on the page more than we start diving into the words. So the document should be visually appealing. We want to keep in mind that top center, remember that V that they're going to be looking at, that top center is what's going to get looked at first. So it's important that our name and our contact information, and probably your summary and your job title too, are all going to be centered, and they're going to be at the top of the page. That's going to be to the job seeker's benefit. Next, the section headings. Those could also be centered. However, I really like to put them on the left side because remember, we found out that employers tend to scan things with that the E look. So they're looking on the far left first, and then they're moving over across those bullets. So you're going to want to put your headers over there so that they're catching those first, because past that V, that's where they're going to start looking, is on that left-hand side. So you can center them if you want to, but I certainly prefer to have those on the left. The data under the section headers, that should all be left aligned, and it needs to be consistent. Bullets should never, ever be centered. Bullets should always be on the left side. Left aligned is best. If you're using columns, really we shouldn't. There's not much of a need for columns in resumes, and ATS doesn't like them. But if you are using columns, it's important that those are going to be even. So what I mean by that is if you have 6 columns, or 6 bullet points, and you're putting them in columns, you should have 3 on this side and 3 on this side. They should also be in uniform alignment. You want to make sure that those are lined up nice. And we're going to learn how to do all that, so don't worry about that. Once we create that resume, then I'll recommend turning on, and when it's all completely done, we'll turn on the grid lines in the View tab, and that way you can make sure that all of those are lined up. And what I mean is when you see the picture here on the page, the very far left side, you have a little red dotted line. Under each one of these column headers, you've got bullets, and we want to make sure the bullets in that first section line up exactly with them in each other section. And did I miss spacing? Uniform alignment, spacing after and before each section. So you have the ability in Microsoft Word to expand the spacing before a section and expand it after a section. And that kind of just breaks it up a little bit. And I like to expand it before, especially so it kind of shows you that the next section is coming. Whatever you do, if you decide to increase that so that you have a little bit more space between there, you want to make sure that you copy that same formatting, that you have that same spacing before each one of those sections so that there's uniform alignment in your entire document. Notice too that we have those dates listed on the right hand side, and we've used a right tab so that they all line up nice and neat on the right hand side, and you can see how we used a right tab, but notice how they're all in alignment, those dates on the right side. Moving on to bullets. I know it's boring. People don't like it. They want to use fancy little scissors or something crazy like that, but we want to use boring bullets. You want to use circles or squares. If you really feel like going out on a limb, you might use something like a diamond. That's just a square on its side, so it's not all that crazy. But you just want to stick with the boring ones because that's what's professional. Now, if you were applying for a graphic artist position, okay, maybe then you use something a little bit more spicy. If you're applying for a job as a teacher, maybe then you use something that's like a crayon or a pencil. That makes sense to me. But really, there's not a lot of reason to go outside of that box. So use something that's going to be professional. You're just going to use your circles and squares. When you turn this into a plain text document and you upload that, whatever you choose is going to get turned into an asterisk anyway. So keep that in mind as far as ATS is concerned. Now, as far as the bullets on the page is concerned, the uniform alignment here, what we're talking about is making sure that each section, those align with each other like I showed you on the previous slide there. The 3 to 6 items, bullets should be reserved for 3 to 6 items. 2 is acceptable. You really don't want anything more than 6. That's the key. You know, anything less than 6 is going to be acceptable, but 3 to 6 is pretty good. If you break your bullets into columns like we saw on that last screen, like I said, we don't want to do that because if we're putting like your skill words, you want to tell them how. You want to as evidenced by what. And so you don't just want a one-word thing. You want to be able to expand that. But if you're going to put your bullets into columns, make sure that you make those even. So 2 columns of 3 items apiece kind of a thing. You want to make sure that those are evenly distributed. As far as punctuation is concerned with bullets, generally speaking, we use punctuation if it's an entire, like a complete sentence. Then you can use your period at the end or whatever. Whatever you decide to do for your bullets, just do it consistently. If you're going to use a period, use it on all of the sections. If you don't, then just don't. And usually it's going to be a don't because in resume writing, it's not first person. And so generally we don't have a lot of full sentences. That's just the way that it is. Okay, tables. ATS doesn't like tables, so I don't suggest you use them. Templates, if you've helped somebody in the resource area, a job seeker, you've helped somebody when you're doing career coaching, and they bring you a resume that they created on their own, and now they need to make a change, and they need to add one experience, which you'll almost always find is that there's some kind of a funky monkey experience that looks something like this on the screen, and when you go to add something, it doesn't just add it. And the reason it doesn't add it is because it was probably created in a template, and it was probably created as a table. And so you have to add different lines to the table. And what they did in that table was they merged part of the cells all together, and then they unmerged those, and it just makes it more difficult. It does help for alignment purposes. I will give you that. It does make it visually appealing. What we ended up doing, what this table on the top, it's the same exact information. All I did was I removed the lines in the table so that it looks like it's just data on the page, but it's still technically a table and it will still throw ATS off. The other thing about ATS is, so you could turn this into a plain text document and then you can send that in. The thing is that plain text, that conversion, it converts the text a little bit wonky. So it brings in bullets one way, like left, right, left, right, left, right, where you might think it goes up, down. And it brings in tables the other way, brings them up, down, up, down, up, down, and then over. I think that's the way it's either that way or exact opposite. At any rate, it brings it in wonky, not like you would normally read it or not like you would expect it to be on the page. And so you have to re-look at that and make sure that after you convert it that it's the way that you want it to look before you send it over. Many templates do use these. So one thing that you can do, and I'll show you how to do this, if somebody comes to you with a resume and they just need to make a change or whatever, you can convert this information to text. So you can select the table and say convert to text. And then at that point, it's just going to be text that you're working with, and you can start manipulating it and, making some changes and that kind of a thing. You could also insert another table. The table designs that they have in Word, they're pretty cool. I use them all the time for other things, but they do not belong in a resume. So we are not going to use any of those table designs at all. They're going to throw off ATS and they're not going to look professional. If you're going to use a table like this, you want to remove all those borders so that it looks clean and neat, like that version at the bottom there. And I will teach you all those nuances with tables when we get to the word portion. Next is spelling and grammar. This is so very important because in your resume, this is your proof in the pudding that you have professional communication skills, that you can write a professional document, create a professional document. There is no room for error. A spelling or a grammar error lets a prospective employer know right off the bat that you are not worthy. You really don't even want one error. One error maybe is forgivable, no more than that. So use your spell check on Microsoft Word. Use your spell check option that's in Google or, going through the internet. Look at Grammarly.com, Grammarly, Grammarly.com. Wonderful, wonderful tool. It's just like grammar with an ly. And in there, you can use it for free. You can copy and paste your resume in, and then it'll tell you what to fix. You can also download a version into your Microsoft Word or your Outlook, and it will fix your errors right there on your page as it'll pop up and say, look, this is what we found. And it doesn't only fix grammar errors and spelling errors, but it says, looks like you use this word a lot. Maybe think about using this word, or think about restructuring this sentence. It's got some really good information. Other things, no personal pronouns are allowed ever. So we do not want to use me, myself, or I. What I like to do is get words down on paper. And like when I'm talking with a client, I'm creating a resume, I'll use their words and I'll write it down. Then we go back through and we reword those and remove those letter I's. So no me, myself, or I. Summaries are very difficult to write, that the objective or whatever at the top. People really struggle with writing that without being in first person. So that's a good one where we can get words down on paper first and then try to rewrite it without having that first person. Next is abbreviations. They are taboo when you're writing a resume. There are a few universal options that are okay, and I will talk about those. But generally speaking, an abbreviation or an acronym, you want to spell it out first and then put it in parentheses so they know what you're referring to. Once you've done it once, then you can talk about that again. And I talked about this in the last resume training, but it is okay if they use it in the job description. It's okay for you to use it. And if it's an industry recognized acronym, so something like OSHA certified. We're hiring a CDL driver. Okay, a CDL driver is going to know what a CDL stands for, and so are they. Then that is okay. But generally speaking, and just safer than sorry, the first time, write it out. As far as your abbreviations are concerned, and the ones that are okay, the few exceptions, states. States should be both capitalized, and those abbreviations are good, and it's a two-letter abbreviation. Universal Business World abbreviations. Things like Microsoft is known as MS. That you can get away with. The months, so you can put DEC. That you can get away with. Industry jargon, but only if you are applying in the industry you're working in. So if you've been working in the industry, you're applying in that industry, then you can use that jargon. If they're using it, you can use it. That's kind of the good old, rule of thumb. Okay, a few more things worthy of noting and formatting, and I just kind of thrown this into the miscellaneous pool because it's worthy of noting, but I don't know how else to do a slide on them, so we'll put them all in one. Your contact information should be on all your additional informations. And so the best way to do this is whatever you decide for your header. So you've got your name and you've got your contact information. Use that same header when you do your reference page, when you do your cover letter, and if you happen to have 2 or 3 pages of your resume, do it on the second and the third pages or whatever too, so that it all looks the same and it's all uniform and looks perfect and wonderful and they all match. Remove any hyperlinks that you have on your page. So that would be if you've put anything in the body of your email, like your, program you worked with or something like that, but also in your email and your social media site that might be at the top. Make sure that you remove those hyperlinks. It's easy. It's just a right click, remove hyperlink. It's super easy. It is acceptable to leave your hyperlink if you're posting a resume on social media like LinkedIn. That then is okay. It's easier to read and it's more professional, which is why we remove it. If they need it, they can copy and paste it in. Plain text is going to remove them anyway. So, it's always best to turn it into plain text before you upload that. So no worries, because that will remove that anyway. We want to use a resume title to link to the job description. That's always a good idea. It's a free keyword, but make sure that you match their exact words. So whatever they use, you use that. Makes it pass that ATS test. And preferred formatting. So as far as the phone number is concerned, it used to be that we would put parentheses, so parenthesis 406, parenthesis 555, 5555. But now what they're saying is that the new up-to-date way, and ATS does like it, is to use periods. And so using parentheses actually ages us. So if you're worried about, maybe being a more mature worker, consider that. Make sure that you're using periods instead. So it would be 406, period, 555, period, 5555. As far as your location is concerned, any locations, you're going to put the city, comma, 1 space, and then the 2-letter abbreviation, and they're both going to be capitalized. As far as your dates are concerned, you're going to have the first 2 are going to be your month, so it's going to be 03 for March, slash, and then the year, all 4 digits for the year. So if you, like right now, it's December of 2022, I can put 12 slash 2022. You don't want to just put 22, 2022. And if you were earlier in the year, you would want to make sure you get that 0. So you're going to go 01 slash 2023. On to saving the document. There are 3 ways that you want to save your resume. You're going to want to save a Word document, because you're going to be able to make changes to that later. You want to save a PDF document. That's going to look exactly like you plan it to look, and you're going to want to send that via an email. It's a great way to send that. And then when you're uploading it to a site, so for ATS, you're going to want to save it as a plain text document. That's going to make it ATS friendly for the most part, and it's going to make it scannable, and you can still make changes to it as well, because it's just a plain text document. As far as your file name is concerned, you want it to be professional. You want to list at least your last name. If not, I used to do first initial last name. That seems to work pretty well, depending on how normal your name is, I would say. It's good also to include the job. So here we have Smith Admin Assistant. That works. You can even include the business name if you wanted to do that too, depending on how long you want that to get. And as far as the saving is concerned, I'll show you how to do that in Word. Okay, moving on to each section. So this is where I usually take a break, ask if they have any questions. Very often there'll be questions along the way in each one of those sections where people want to know a little bit more. And I will tell you that a lot of times the answer is yes, just wait, we're going to talk about that. And so, if you can get through to these next pieces, it's probably better. And we'll definitely get into the exact how to do everything when we're in the Word, because we'll build one from the get-go. So we're going to start with resume intro. We'll go to job experience, and then we'll talk about skills, education, and references. I'll point out that generally speaking, this is in a chronological format. Doesn't have to be that way, but we're going to talk about it. That's what employers like, so that's what we're going to do most often anyway, and so that's the order that we'll be working in. But if they decide to do a functional or a combo, they can do those in any order that they want to do them. Okay, your resume intro section. Let me reiterate what I talked about in the last training. This is not a necessary piece. You do not need to have a resume intro section at all. If you feel like this is going to help you to get the job, if you feel like this is going to be something that's going to be a make or break, then yes, add it by all means. I like to write this after I do my resume. That way I have the whole resume on paper. I know what I've been able to mention and talk about, and then I know what I want to highlight and make sure that they know about me before I call it good and button this thing up. There's a few different ways that we can do an intro, and one of the most important things that I need you to know about an intro is that this should not be self-serving. So it's not going to be in first person, and it's not self-serving. What I mean by that is that this needs to be written to the employer. This needs to be saying, this is how I'm going to help you. This isn't talking about, I need great benefits. I want a full-time job. I want stability. This isn't about what you need or want. This is about serving the employer's needs. So when we talk about a resume career objective, it's, you can call it anything you want as far as that's concerned, or you don't even need to title these, by the way. It doesn't need to say that at the top. But that is going to be a couple of sentences, and it's going to detail how a job seeker excels, and it's going to give a short-term goal that applies to the job that they're applying for. It's usually centered on the page. And on the next slide, I will show you some examples, pretty sure. A summary, which is also very often called a qualification summary or a summary of qualifications, is just that. It's going to be a list of some of a person's most notable achievements. So these are typically going to be a bulleted list. It's not going to be written in sentence form, and it's going to highlight your skills, if you will. It's going to bring to the top the best of the best. The focus of that summary is to highlight your relevant skills for the job. Remember, it needs to align to the job. This isn't you saying that, you know, this is how I'm awesome. If it doesn't apply, then we aren't going to include it. The next one is a resume or a professional profile. It's a combo of the first two. I really like this one, actually. So there's usually a couple of sentences, a sentence or two. It's just going to introduce those qualifications. And then you're going to outline a couple, 3 qualifications. Experts in a field really like to use these, and I like the way that they come off looking. A resume summary or a professional summary is similar to the qualification summary. However, the achievements are typically, they'll have a title and then they're described more in detail next to it. So you'll see it'll be a bulleted list, and usually there'll be either a bold or some kind of a title, and then it'll list those. So here are some examples of those. And I usually like to read these out loud so that folks can get an idea of how that really truly feels. My big screen is over here to my left, so when I do that, I'm not going to be looking at the camera anymore, and so I apologize for that. But here are some examples of different types of introductions. The introductions are, of course, not necessary. You do not need to have these. And if a couple of lines of text introducing yourself is going to help you to get your foot in the door, then by all means do it. But remember, this is a valuable real estate that you're giving up, and you might prefer to use this area for your regular work experience or whatever. An objective is going to work well when you have a little to no experience. So that's that first one. And you can highlight your character and your work ethic here. So now I'll read you that one. Lead bartender with 4+ years of experience in cocktail preparation and creation and bartending license certified by the District of Columbia. Possess a deep knowledge of local craft beers, wines, spirits, and cocktails, as well as their optimal food pairings. Seeking to leverage my bartending skills to fulfill the head bartender position at your restaurant. That's an objective. A couple of sentences describing how you're going to help them achieve their goals. Qualification summary is going to work really well when you want to show an alignment between your current skills and maybe a different position. So if you're looking to do something slightly different than you've done in the past, it's a good way to align those. This is the one that's going to be a bulleted list of those qualifications that kind of rise to the top. So here's that one. Superior salesmanship, consistently outperforming peers, friendly, outgoing, and charismatic personality, experience working with POS terminals, probably should have spelled that one out. Excellent at math, working knowledge of wines, cocktail mixes, craft beers, and other bartending skills, conversational in Spanish and Mandarin Chinese. Okay, that's interesting. Those are things that I wasn't expecting to learn about this person. They are special qualifications. So that is a qualification summary. The third one is the profile. So you're going to call this a resume or a professional profile. This works really well when you're applying for a similar role in the same industry. So you're switching companies, but not industries, generally speaking. So here's this one. Lead bartender with more than 4 years of experience in cocktail preparation and creation, eager to join ABC Company as a bar manager. So there is our intro, and then we're going to have bulleted lists. So it's the best of both worlds. Consistently attain more than 90% positive customer ratings, knowledgeable of local craft beers, wines, spirits, and cocktails, as well as optimal food pairings, and superior salesmanship, consistently outperforming peers. I like it. The last one is the resume summary. And you could call this the professional summary as well. This is best for people with a lot of experience. It highlights your outstanding achievements. And this is much like that qualification summary, but see how we have our bold title and then we explain how. So as evidenced by what, right? So here we have project execution, implemented new menu introduction strategies, increasing customer purchases of wine by 10% on average. They should have listed out average completely, by the way. Management assisted in training of 6 new waiters, ensuring attention to detail and comprehensive understanding of restaurant methodology and practices. Awards and recognition, frequently praised for excellent service on restaurants' online rating system. And salesmanship, deep and broad knowledge of wines and pairings. So see how those all worked out, find one that you like, how you think that's going to work for you, and then kind of go with that option. And like I said, I like to rate this last. Next is our experience section. So I've put this into a bucket of to-dos and to not to includes. So our list on things that we do want to include. The experience section needs to be in reverse chronological order, so the newest at the top. Each listing should include the position, which is the most important part. What I usually like to do is put that first, and then I'll either make it bold or I'll use italics to make it really stand out, because that's the part that the employer is looking for. Next is the business name. The business name doesn't have to be in any kind of special font, but it could be if you wanted it to be. Then you're going to do the city and the state and the dates employed. Make sure you're right aligning those dates employed. Next, if possible, you're going to list 2 to 3 job experiences. More can become overwhelming, and fewer makes a job seeker look inexperienced. So consider that, and pull in the things that are directly applicable to that job itself. Under each listing, we want to put 3 to 6 descriptions of accomplishments. So you're going to stay tuned for more on the next screen, because I'm really going to dive into how to make those accomplishments and how not to have those be duties. We don't want to say that you swept the floor. We want to say, how did you sweep the floor better? Description should always begin with an action verb. So look at that Power Verbs handout. That's really, really helpful. It's going to take your word that you think you might use, like managed, and it's going to find you a whole lot more words that you can use that are really going to be good. So something like organize versus organized. And oh, that's the next one. Yeah. So I gave you the little list last time of those, that was snippet, but go and look at that list. It's a good list. The next one is that the description should begin with action verbs. We're going to use the appropriate tenses of verbs. So if you're currently working for a job, you're going to say that you organize things or that you lead a team. If you have done it in the past, you don't work there anymore, you're going to say you led the team. You're going to say that you organized with the D at the end. Your experience should be in the last 7 to 10 years. Of course, you can bring in relevant work if it's past that, as long as it's specific to the job that you're applying for, and it's going to help you get the job. Think about that. Is that experience going to help you get the job or not? Okay, that's it for the to-do list. Now the don't list. What don't we want to do? We don't want to use job duties or responsibilities include or all aspects of. We don't want any words like that in there. We need to list items that make you stand out. So how did you do it better than your coworker? And I have a lot of conversations with people when we do career coaching and ask them and draw that out and go, oh, okay, so this is what you did for a living. Yeah. And so you were good at that then? How did you do it better? That's what you need to get down to the nitty gritty of how did you go above and beyond? How did you do it better than the next guy? So a simple list of job duties copied and pasted from the web is not acceptable anymore. We used to literally take them from ONET and bring them over. We don't do that anymore. No more list of duties. That's the employer knows that you know how to push a broom. What you don't need to do is how did you do it better? How did you go beyond? The other thing that we don't want to include is a wordy paragraph that's packed with duties and vague and doesn't show impact. And we see that quite a bit, actually, especially from older job seekers. So we want to make sure that we're using bullets that really kind of help space it out and makes it easier to read. We also don't want to include descriptions that aren't relevant to the job that the person's applying for. So think about this. If your job seeker in front of you here, they want to be a caregiver, but all they've ever done is food service experience. We want them to describe how they communicated well with their customers, how they provided professional, personal experience and service, how they had an attention to detail that helped them to ensure public safety, rather than took orders, accepted payments, prepared and served food and drinks. So although, yes, they did all those things, these are the things that you would also have to do when you were being a caregiver. And gosh, look, those things do align. You did do those over here too. You just kind of did them in a different way. You offered personalized service. So let's talk about that personalized service that you did. And here's our duties versus accomplishments. Remember when you're writing these to always put the ones that are the best at the top, the things that are the most applicable for the job you're applying for. The difference between a job duty and accomplishment is pretty clear, especially when you read these here on the screen, and I'll read these over to you too. A duty is what you did. The accomplishment is how well you did that. So when you consider your work ethic and you consider what are you the most proud of, that is what you want to articulate and get down on paper. So we're going to make a list of all the things that you did at your job that set you apart, and then you start to really break them down. So how did you stand out? Were you ever recognized on the job for doing something well done? Did you win any awards or accolades? Did you come up with an idea that they then put into place? Did you solve a problem? Did you find a solution? Did you meet or exceed goals? Did you find any cost-saving measures? What nice things would a previous boss say about you today? Now we take that list and we write accomplishment statements, and we use those power verbs to do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you the job responsibility that's on the left, and then I'm going to read to you the resume accomplishment saying that same thing, but we want to say how we did it better. You want to quantify if at all possible, put numbers in there. That's always going to be a good thing. So on the left, I have planned events. On the right, I have organized a sold-out charity event for 300 people and raised $125,000. Okay, that's powerful. That's a difference. Produced email campaigns on a monthly basis. Okay. Produced 70 to 90 email campaigns and generated over 30 million emails to customers per month. Okay, that is powerful. Successfully sold software solutions to various customers, or increased sales from 400,000 to 1.2 million. No brainer. Definitely better. Conducted training sessions, or conducted compliance training for 80 plus managers across 3 locations. It's just better. We want to add those quantitative pieces if at all possible. Okay, so as we try to think of accomplishments, we want to think of things that you did at work that either made money, they saved money, they improved your work process, they made work easier, they made things more efficient. You improved something else like safety or customer service or just about anything. You solved a problem, you built relationships, any of these kind of things. You attracted new customers, you retained existing customers. So as they try to work through the accomplishments goal, what I suggest is that they think of the acronym CAR. So, because that'll drive them there. So challenge, what was the challenge they faced? The action, what did they do to solve the problem? And the results, what was the outcome of their efforts? So think about those things. And accomplishments should always be quantified. So if we can add money, percentage, numbers, whatever we can do there. This is just a really good screen to have up and help them to brainstorm the accomplishments and what they did at each job. Another way when you're looking to find the right words, ONET is a really good resource. So what you can do is go to onetonline.org and you can look up whatever job it is that they've done in the past, and then you can go to the skills and abilities section, and that might align well with one position or another. So you're going to start here, but this is really just going to get your creative juices flowing. We are not copying in any of this. We're not going to copy in job duties, and we're not going to copy in the skills and abilities, but it does get your scenario and get your brain back to what you did on that job. So you can also go to the knowledge section. You can acquire the skills. How did you come to have the abilities? Those kind of things. This is going to just kind of start those creative juices flowing, and then you start writing those. And of course, make sure that they align with the job that you're going to be doing, and make sure that they're quantifiable whenever possible. The next section is the skills section. So in the skills section, it's going to contain a number of keywords. So make sure that you have that job description handy. You want to make sure that you're bringing in those skills that they said that they need. You're going to highlight all those important skills and abilities and experiences, and then you're going to bring in as many of those as you can. In the days of yesteryear, we created a skills section with words that everyone else was using too. Things like dependable, hardworking, great communicator, and literally just the words. But if those types of words are worthy of noting because they are on the job description, that it's better to either put them in a small insignificant area at the bottom, like you see at the bottom of the slide here, where I call that the keyword optimizer. You can do that if you don't have much to say about that. But the other thing is, of course, to tell them how. So as evidenced by what. But the ATS will pick them up as well if you put them at the bottom. Skills can be categorized as hard and soft skills. So think about what you're saying that you can do, and does it fall into hard or does it fall into the soft skills part? Hard skills are going to be learned through job opportunities, and they're going to add significantly to a job seeker's value. They're usually quantifiable, and the more of those, the better. It's important to be truthful, and you only want to list the things that you absolutely do well, that you feel comfortable doing, that you have done in the past. You don't want to say you can do something that you can't. But if it's not applicable to the job, it might not be worthy of noting. So if I'm applying for a job at Job Service and I'm forklift certified, that's probably not very helpful at Job Service. So I'm going to just leave that out entirely. If it is a part of what I'm applying for, then sure, I'm going to put that on there. Today, our skills section needs to be skills that others don't have, things that are going to make you look special. So certified, CPR certified, or proficient with Microsoft Office, or QuickBooks, or list a proficiency level if you can. If you can say that you're an expert level, or if you're advanced, then use that terminology. And any specifics that you can that are going to help you with the job. So if you know they're using certain computer programs, list it. Make sure that you're using that. If you're applying for a remote job, make sure that you're adding in the skills that are needed to be a remote worker. Things like adaptability and time management and independent worker. Those are things that really rise to the top if you're wanting to be a remote worker. Now, soft skills are important too, but they're not as important. They aren't as valuable, let's put it that way. They should only be listed in the skills section if you can give examples to prove that skill. If not, consider putting them at the bottom. So if you can't come up with a way to say, as evidenced by what, I'm excellent communication skills. Okay, how so? Did you write a really valuable paper? What is it that you did that really rises to the top? Hiring managers also look at a ton of resumes, and they will look at overused buzzwords, which we see on the right-hand side over here. They're not going to be wowed by you telling them that you're highly motivated or driven. You can tell them anything. So you have to show them that. You have to show them these things in an interview, in the way that you write, in the application materials that you're submitting. Okay, now our specifics in the skills section. The skills section can be anywhere that you want it to be, depending on the kind of resume that you end up building. So it might be at the top, it might be in the middle, it might be at the bottom. It can be called a lot of different things too, but try not to confuse ATS too much. Don't get too wordy. Skills should be used in a bulleted list, but no more than 6. Group your bullets based on hard and soft, and put the best ones at the top. If you choose to do columns, I know I've talked about this before, you really shouldn't use columns anyway, but put the hard on the left and the soft on the right and order them in order of importance. You're going to need to show employers how you gained that skill. Don't tell them, you have to show them that you have the skill. It's great to add a level of proficiency as well, and make sure that the skills are listed, are things that the employer is looking for. So make sure that you're bringing them in right from the job description. Don't just list a skill because you have it. If they don't need it and it's not relevant, remove it. You're wasting valuable real estate. And here's some great examples of skills. And I'm not sure that I need to read each one of these, but I guess I will, because I'll give you some time to read them. We have additional skills: highly skilled leader with skills in delegating tasks, team building, and creating positive customer experiences. Well-versed in Microsoft Office Suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Project, and Access. Skilled with Adobe Illustrator and Photo Admin Shop Fireworks. Highly proficient with QuickBooks and words per minute, which they should have spelled out, 90. Core qualifications: computer skills, proficient in Photoshop and Adobe Creative Suite, problem solver, located leak in supply pipeline, team player, organized and facilitated monthly staff meetings in the supervisor's absence. We told them how. Skills and ability section: flexible and welcome working irregular hours. That's a good one that works really well for people that have very little experience. They can put that on there, and that really gives them a positive for the resume. Good cohesive team developer, ability to handle customer complaints and client issues with ease, and results oriented with a high sales track record. All good examples. Another thing to consider are the words that you use, and the Power Verbs handout is really good. I have that mentioned again here. Make sure that you're handing that out at this point, or connecting them to that resource. Throw in your action words throughout your resume to show that you are a team player, or that you have a good attitude, or that you are a leader, or whatever. And if you wonder how to say something, use Google. Google knows everything. Words that describe a leader, and use those words and integrate those into your resume in some way, shape, or form, and it's going to make you seem more like that leadership role. So consider how you word all of the different things that you say. On to the education section. Now, although the education section can easily contain your certifications and whatnot too, don't confuse professional certifications with honors and awards. An employee of the month is not a certification. If a resume has room for achievement section, then go ahead and put an achievement section, and that's where you'd put it. It's not that it's not worthy, you just don't want to put it under a certification. A certification is going to be something that you got from an accredited authority. It's a program that's more than just one class. And remember to include the accrediting agency like you would an educational institution. So on our list of things that we do want to include, we want to include the specific degree. Don't abbreviate that degree. Lots of people want to put BA for bachelor's. Don't do that. You want to spell it out, bachelor's degree. Put the institution and put the location. I like to do that in the same formatting as you've done the employer, because it looks consistent and they know where to find that information, so consider that. If you are listing an online school, use the location that they printed on your school records. Military education can be listing in a separate section if applicable. Sometimes you have a lot of different military education that you can break down, and that's okay to put that in a separate section. You want to use the same kind of heading styles as you do for your experience section. You're going to use dates if you're proud that it was accomplished in 3 years. Using dates can be used to hurt you, because they can be doing the math. So, only put it in there if it's within the last 3 years. Otherwise, leave it out. You want to list all relevant certifications, but make sure that they are relevant to the job that you're applying for. I'm not going to put that I'm a CDL truck driver if I'm applying for a job at Job Service and I'm never going to drive a truck. You have to put the ones that are applicable. And it's okay to state your GPA if it's over 3.5. If there are any minor or special accreditations, or even special courses that are applicable to the job that you're applying for, go ahead and mention those in bullets underneath. If an education is in progress, if you don't have it done yet, then you can go ahead and put the expected date of completion, but make sure you put expected date of completion. And it's also okay to add an area of study if it's applicable to the job. As far as do not include, the highest level trumps. So you don't need to put high school diploma if you already have a college degree. They understand you have a high school diploma or a HiSET because you are in college. Now, if you're applying for a job and they want you to list the high school, then yes, absolutely list it. But you don't need to put this on your resume unless you've been asked to do so. You also want to take out any irrelevant certifications and any general dates that you have. So like some certifications won't have an expiration date, but if you got it so long ago that it's really not applicable anymore, then just take that off entirely, especially the date part. If you have an old certification that isn't relevant anymore, just take it away. There is an exception to that rule. Let's say that you used to be a CNA, but you let the CNA slide and you don't have that anymore, but you're applying for a PCA job. And them knowing that you used to be a CNA, which is a level above a PCA, might actually help you get the job. Then you could put it on there and say expired in this area. You know, if it's going to give you a leg up, then sure, you can put it in there. Otherwise not. Your dates of graduation, you're going to leave that off because it's only going to hurt you. They're going to be doing the job unless it's within 3 years. And don't, you know, put any acronyms in there. Make sure that you spell it out. There we go. And here's your reference list. Now, this really shouldn't even be on a resume because your reference list is a completely different sheet of paper and you're not going to turn it in unless they ask you for it. So you do not really, this isn't even the same, but it's worthy of mentioning because we don't want you to put references available upon request on your resume. It's lazy, it's outdated. We take it off. If they ask for it, you give it to them, and you're not going to give it to them if they don't ask. We want it to be on a separate sheet of paper. Use your same contact information. So your header is going to look the same. Who do you use? Use a current or former manager or a coworker. Use teachers, professors, coaches, advisors. Use friends and family as a last resort. If you have to use family, try to use family that does not have the same last name. And make sure you ask them ahead of time. Make sure that you get their permission and use the best person for that position. You're going to list their name, their title, the relationship to you. So were they your boss? Were they your supervisor? Whatever that was, and their phone number. People ask me all the time, what about an email? You can add an email if you want to. Generally speaking, I would ask the person. So how do you want them to get a hold of you? And put that on there. If they want them to email them, then put that on there. Some online applications ask for an email and they don't give you a choice. You have to. One thing I would suggest is when you contact that reference, so they've told you they want 3 references. You decided that Susie Q would be great. Contact her. Say, I would love to use you for your reference. Are you okay with that? Yes, I am. Okay, I'm applying for a job. This is the position I'm applying for. I would love to share my current resume and the job description with you. And then email those to them so that then they know what you're applying for and they know what they can highlight to make you look good. And you can also remind them of things that you did that in the job that you worked with them that are applicable to this job and things that they could mention and talk about that would make you look good. So sometimes you have to remind them of how stellar you are and how awesome you are, and that's worthy of doing. You do not want to give a reference that's going to give you a bad recommendations. I have called references and had bad things said and on way too many occasions, and it's crazy to me. So don't let that happen. That will absolutely not get you hired. So use good references. Here's our quick recap. Can you believe it? We're there. Don't use a Word template. Don't use a template, period. Which, if you're going to use a resume builder online, it's going to be a template. Okay. Choose your own style. We're going to do that with the design and the theme tabs, and I will show you how to get there. We'll change the color and the font and the style and all that jazz. You're going to be consistent with your headings, your bullets, your fonts, and your alignment in each section. We want to focus on our accomplishments, not duties. We want to spell check and save in 3 different ways. Check that resume checklist. When you're all said and done, check the checklist and see how it fares. And there you go. The next training is going to be the resume writing, and we'll start with a blank Word document. I actually start everybody out with a sample resume, which it's called sample resume to play, so that we can see how some of those theme changes occur, and then we open it up a blank Word document and work from there. And here's your final slide where you're going to insert your own information where it says call job service office, and that way they can contact you. I would leave everything else so they can call and get a one-on-one appointment at job service and all that jazz. If you need to get a hold of me, if you saw an error in the slides, if you think that we need to add something, if you just have a question, reach out to me. You can always find me on Teams, and my email is kvanni2@mt.gov. So it's KVANNI, the number 2, at mt.gov. Thanks.